My name is Selena Wright. I am 38 years old, a critical care nurse, and a single mother raising 5-year-old twin boys on my own. For most of my life, I believed that family was permanent, that no matter how invisible or exhausted I felt, blood would always mean loyalty. I was wrong. Growing up, I learned very early what my role was inside my family. My older sister, Claire, was celebrating. Her achievements were framed, praised, and repeated at every holiday dinner. Mine were acknowledged politely and then forgotten. I wasn't the daughter they worried about or dreamed of, for I was the daughter they depended on. When I chose nursing, my parents said they were proud. What they really meant was relief, a stable job, a reliable income, someone they could lean on without feeling guilty. I didn't notice it at first, or maybe I didn't want to. It started with small requests, a little help with the mortgage, assistance with insurance premiums. Just for a few months, they always said. I agreed every time. Years passed, I became a mother. Then suddenly, I became everything at once: provider, caregiver, emotional support, financial safety net. The twins' father walked away when they were barely toddlers, leaving me to figure out life on my own. I worked long night shifts in the ICU, holding strangers' hands as they took their last breaths, then came home to pack lunches and wipe tears before preschool. Despite everything, I never stopped helping my parents. Month after month, I sent money without being asked twice. I covered medical bills, utilities, even property taxes when my father said he was falling behind. I never tracked the total, but later I would realize it was well over $400,000. Not once did they ask if I was struggling too. My sons, Ethan and Miles, were the reason I kept going. Ethan was gentle and thoughtful, always observing the world carefully. Miles was curious and fearless, asking endless questions about how everything worked. They trusted me completely. They believed I could handle anything. And I believed it too, until the night my body gave out. It was raining hard when I left the hospital after a double shift. My mind was foggy with exhaustion, my hands stiff from hours of work. I remember slowing down at an intersection, and then the sound of another vehicle crashing into mine from the side. Metal folded, glass shattered, pain exploded through my abdomen. When I woke up, I was surrounded by bright lights and urgent voices. A doctor explained that I had internal bleeding and needed immediate surgery. As fear crept in, my thoughts didn't go to my own survival. They went to my children. From the hospital bed, barely able to lift my phone, I called my parents. My voice was weak as I explained the accident, the surgery, the uncertainty. I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for comfort. I asked for one simple thing. Please take the boys for a few days, I said, just until I'm stable. There was silence on the line. Then my mother sighed, a sound that carried years of judgment and inconvenience. At that moment, I felt something inside me crack. Not pain, not fear, but the sudden realization that I had always been loved for what I provided, not for who I was. The silence on the phone felt heavier than the pain in my body. I waited, hoping my mother would say something kind, something human. Instead, her voice came back sharp and irritated, as if I had interrupted her evening. "Selena, this is really not a good time," she said. "Your father has appointments, and Claire's kids already keep us busy. You'll have to figure something else out." I swallowed hard. "Mom, I'm having emergency surgery. I just need a few days. They're your grandsons." She exhaled loudly, clearly annoyed. "You always have some crisis. Honestly, you make everything so complicated." Before I could respond, the call ended. Minutes later, my phone vibrated. A text message appeared on the screen. I still remember every word. "You need to stop relying on us. Your situation is becoming a nuisance. We didn't sign up to raise your children." I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Nuisance. That was the word she chose. While I lay in a hospital bed, bleeding internally, terrified of leaving my children alone in the world. For the first time in my life, I didn't cry. Something inside me went quiet. A nurse noticed my distress and asked if someone was coming for my kids. I couldn't answer. The reality hit me all at once. I had no one. Not the parents I had supported for years. Not the sister who benefited from my sacrifices. No one but myself. Thankfully, a coworker from the hospital, someone I barely knew outside of work, offered to take Ethan and Miles temporarily. She picked them up that night, packed into my car seats with their pajamas and stuffed animals, confused but safe. As they were wheeled into surgery, my thoughts weren't angry. They were clear. Painfully clear. For years, I had told myself that family meant endurance, that love meant giving without limits. Lying there, staring at the ceiling as anesthesia crept in, I finally understood the truth. It was convenient. It was useful. I had never been valued. When I woke up hours later in recovery, weak but alive, I asked for my phone. With trembling fingers, I opened my banking app. I looked at the recurring transfers, the ones that went out every single month to my parents' account: mortgage assistance, insurance, family support. I didn't send a message. I didn't make an announcement. I simply canceled every payment. In that quiet hospital room, I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose my children. I chose myself. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. The days that followed were slow and painful. Recovery was difficult. Every movement reminded me how close I had come to not making it. My parents didn't call. My sister didn't text. No one asked how the surgery went. 2 weeks later, as I was learning how to walk without pain again, I received an unexpected visitor. My grandfather, Arthur Reynolds. He stood at the doorway of my hospital room, tall, composed, his expression calm but unreadable. A retired federal judge, a man known for his restraint and integrity. He wasn't supposed to know anything yet, but someone had told him. He sat beside my bed and listened as I told him everything. The money, the years, the phone call, the text message. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. When I finished, he simply nodded. "They showed you exactly who they are," he said quietly. "Now they can show the rest of the family too." That was when he invited me to his upcoming birthday gathering. And for the first time since the accident, I felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not sadness, but the calm certainty that the truth was about to come out. 2 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital. My body was still healing, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. Ethan and Miles came home, clinging to me like they were afraid I might disappear again. Every time they wrapped their arms around my neck, I was reminded why I had made my choice. A few days after that, I received a formal invitation in the mail. My grandfather, Arthur Reynolds, was turning 70, and he was hosting a family gathering at his home. It wasn't unusual. He'd always believed milestones should be celebrated with family. What was unusual was the handwritten note at the bottom of the card. "I want you there. We need to talk. All of us." I hesitated. The thought of being in the same room as my parents made my chest tighten. But Arthur wasn't a man who spoke lightly. If he wanted me there, there was a reason. The night of the gathering, his house was full. Laughter echoed through the living room. Glasses clinked. My parents moved through the crowd, comfortably, smiling, telling stories. My sister Claire stood beside them, perfectly at ease, as if nothing in the world had ever gone wrong. When they saw me walk in, the smiles faltered, just for a moment. My mother recovered first. "Selena," she said brightly, as if we'd spoken yesterday. "You look better." I nodded politely and took a seat near the back of the room. I wasn't there to argue. I wasn't there to explain myself. I was there to listen. Arthur waited until everyone had eaten, until the conversation slowed and attention naturally shifted toward him. He stood near the fireplace, holding a glass he never drank from, and cleared his throat. "I've lived a long life," he began. "And one thing I've learned is that families don't fall apart because of strangers. They fall apart because of silence." The room grew quiet. He looked directly at my parents. For years, I've believed we raised our children to support one another. Recently, I learned that wasn't the case. My mother stiffened. My father stared at the floor. Arthur turned to the guests. "Most of you don't know this, but for nearly a decade, Selena financially supported her parents. Mortgage payments, medical bills, insurance, hundreds of thousands of dollars." A murmur rippled through the room. "That's not," my mother started. Arthur raised a hand. "I have records." He calmly laid out printed documents on the table. Bank statements, transfer histories, timelines. The evidence was undeniable. Then he said the words that made the room feel unbearably still. When Selena was hospitalized with internal bleeding and needed emergency surgery, she asked her parents to care for her children for a few days. He paused. They refused. Claire's face was drained of color. Several relatives exchanged shocked glances. My mother tried to laugh it off. "That's a private family matter," Arthur nodded. "So is abandonment." He turned to me. "Selena, would you like to say anything?" I stood slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My voice didn't waver. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said. I came because I spent years believing I had to earn love. I thought being useful meant being valued. When I needed help the most, I learned the truth. I looked at my parents. I was never a daughter to you. I was a resource. No one spoke. In that silence, I felt something I never had before. Freedom. No one rushed to defend my parents. No one raised their voice in protest. The silence that filled my grandfather's living room was heavy, uncomfortable, and honest. For the first time, there was nowhere left for excuses to hide. My mother sat frozen, her smile gone, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. My father looked smaller than I had ever seen him, his shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the floor. The image would have broken my heart once. That night, it didn't. Relatives began to speak quietly among themselves. A cousin asked why they had never mentioned needing financial help. An aunt questioned how anyone could refuse their own grandchildren in a medical emergency. Each question peeled away another layer of the story my parents had carefully maintained for years. They left early that night. Within weeks, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Without my monthly transfers, my parents struggled immediately. Bills went unpaid, late notices appeared. The house they had lived in for decades, the same house I had helped keep, it was suddenly at risk. Eventually, they were forced to sell it and move into a small apartment far from the family they once controlled through image and silence. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't feel proud. What I felt was relief. The kind that comes when you finally stop carrying weight that was never yours to hold. Claire called me one evening, her voice unsteady. She admitted she had always known I was helping financially. She admitted she never questioned it because it made her life easier. I should have spoken up, she said. I should have protected you. Her apology didn't erase the past, but it cracked something open. For the first time, I heard accountability instead of denial. I accepted her apology without promising closeness. Boundaries, I had learned, were not punishment. They were protection. Recovery was slow, not just physically, but emotionally. Therapy helped. So did the quiet routines of rebuilding life with my sons. We cooked together, we laughed more. The house felt lighter, like it was finally breathing. I redirected the money I once sent away every month into something meaningful. College savings accounts, emergency funds, stability, security. I stopped living in survival mode and started planning a future. My parents never apologized, they never asked how I healed. And strangely, I no longer needed them to. I had survived their absence. A year passed quietly. No dramatic confrontations, no last-minute apologies, just distance and healing. My life didn't become perfect overnight, but it became honest. I returned to full-time work, stronger and more focused than ever. The hospital no longer felt like a place I escaped from. It felt like a place I chose. I stopped picking up extra shifts out of guilt and started coming home on time because my sons needed their mother more than anyone else needed my sacrifice. Ethan and Miles grew in ways I hadn't noticed before. They laughed more freely. They slept through the night. They stopped asking why Grandma and Grandpa never visited. Children are incredibly resilient when they feel safe. And for the first time, they truly did. One evening, as I was organizing paperwork, I opened the folder that held the college savings accounts I had created for them. The numbers weren't massive, but they were steady, real, built with intention instead of obligation. That was when it hit me. The money I once sent away to keep adults comfortable was now building a future for my children. And for myself, I bought a small home closer to their school. Nothing fancy, just warm, ours. The first night we slept there, Miles asked, "Mom, are we staying here forever?" I smiled and said, "Yes, this is home." I didn't cut my parents out of my life with anger. I let them go with clarity. They had chosen who they were long before I chose who I needed to be. Love, I learned, is not something you prove by suffering. It's something that shows up, especially when it's inconvenient. My grandfather passed away peacefully not long after his 71st birthday. Before he did, he told me something I'll never forget. "Truth doesn't destroy families," he said. "It reveals them." He was right. Some relationships don't survive honesty, and that doesn't mean honesty was wrong. Today, when I look in the mirror, I no longer see the daughter who existed to be useful. I see a woman who survived abandonment, protected her children, and chose herself without apology. And that choice changed everything. If you're watching this and you feel guilty for setting boundaries, if you were raised to believe love must be earned, please hear this. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to stop explaining. and you are allowed to walk away from people who only value what you give.